Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We are decoding the actual literal architectural components of a successful life and, zooming out, a thriving society. If you've ever found yourself wondering how the most resilient minds out there manage to build a legacy from the absolute ground up, well, you're exactly in the right place. We're going to look at the hard data behind historical narratives, biographical arcs, and even some pretty powerful social manifestos to figure out exactly how it's done.
Okay, let's dive into this. The legendary Stephen Covey really hit the nail on the head with this one. He wrote, "What follows is a plan for building true, enduring success." And that's absolutely crucial for us today. Because we aren't just cobbling together a bunch of quick life hacks here. No, we are examining a literal blueprint. We're drawing from some deeply researched sources to construct a real, actionable guide for strengthening the very core of how we live our lives and build our communities.
So to build this blueprint, we've broken this explainer down into 5 distinct phases: redefining enduring success, the power of failure, cultivating radical empathy, the necessity of imagination, and finally, the architecture of tomorrow.
Starting us off with Phase 1, redefining enduring success.
And moving right into Phase 2, the power of failure. Because look, the foundation of a truly resilient life, it's definitely not built on overnight wins or instant gratification. To build something that actually lasts, our sources all point to one absolute necessity: massive, repeated, and honestly, sometimes spectacular failure. Just take this number, 199. That's the staggering number of research labs that completely rejected a 15-year-old kid named Jack Andraka. 199 no's. But then, the 200th lab at Johns Hopkins University finally said yes. And in that lab, Jack developed a diagnostic test for pancreatic cancer that's literally 100 times better and about 26,000 times less expensive than the existing tests.
Or how about this one? 5,126. That is the exact number of failed prototypes James Dyson built over 5 excruciating years. I mean, just imagine the sheer frustration of cleaning up after more than 5,000 failed vacuums before he finally perfected the world's first bagless vacuum cleaner, a device that, as we know, completely revolutionized the industry and made him a multi-billionaire.
And then there's 9,000. That's the number of shots basketball legend Michael Jordan missed during his career. He lost almost 300 games. But as Jordan himself explicitly says, he failed over and over and over again in his life. And that is the precise reason he ultimately succeeded.
So the sheer scale of rejection required to build a legacy is kind of staggering, isn't it? Rejection really is the literal foundation. Think about Elizabeth Blackwell. She was rejected by 29 medical schools and even told she should just pretend to be a man. She absolutely refused, persevered anyway, and became the first woman to receive a medical degree in the US. Or J.K. Rowling, facing a dozen rejections from publishers while she was divorced, bankrupt, and on welfare. The blueprint is showing us loud and clear that overcoming no isn't some unfortunate detour. It is the path itself.
Which brings us to Phase 3, cultivating radical empathy.
So if failure is the foundation, what's the mortar holding it all together? Let's move to and see how this builds using the incredible biographical timeline of Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. He was the revered missile man of India and its 11th president. His leadership wasn't just forged in a vacuum. As a child, he watched a massive cyclone totally destroy his father's boat business, which taught him firsthand how to manage a crisis with calm resilience. At age 8, during a World War II state of emergency, he had to hustle to sell newspapers just to support his family. In college, he worked incessantly under a punishing 3-day deadline just to keep his scholarship. And as a young man, he missed his ultimate, lifelong dream of becoming an Air Force pilot by a single rank. He had to learn to accept failure and trust the larger plan of his destiny.
But perhaps the most crucial building block for his deep empathy happened earlier, during a World War II food shortage. One evening, an 8-year-old Kalam happily ate his meal, only to be pulled aside later by his brother, who told him that he had unwittingly eaten his mother's share of the food. Out of her profound love for him, she never said a word, and she went to sleep completely hungry that night. The immense guilt he felt taught him a lifelong lesson. You must always be acutely aware of the needs of the people around you. True empathy is born the moment we recognize the sacrifices of others.
And there's actually a fascinating scientific and linguistic weight to Kalam's childhood empathy. As author Arlene Goldbard points out, empathy is physically encoded right into us through our mirror neurons and the oxytocin empathy gene. She shares this incredibly beautiful linguistic gem from the Hebrew text of Psalms. The phrase is bat ayin, which literally translates to daughter of the eye. Conceptually, it refers to the pupil. It's that exact tiny spot where we can see our own miniature image reflected back at us in another person's gaze. I mean, think about that. That is what empathy is at its very core, seeing yourself reflected in the other.
All right, phase 4, the necessity of imagination.
So, we have our solid foundation of failure, and we've got our mortar of empathy. Now we need to actually raise the structure, and this leads us directly into cultural activist Arlene Goldbard's impassioned manifesto. In her piece outlining 10 reasons why America needs artists, she puts forward a very specific and compelling thesis. Society desperately requires artists to heal from what she describes as a plague of greed and indifference. She argues, quite neutrally, that if we want to change the world, we literally have to change the story we're telling ourselves. And to do that, we need the architects of imagination.
The crucial point here is figuring out how exactly imagination functions within our blueprint. Goldbard's extensive 10-point list really distills down to these critical core functions. Artists actuate empathy. They console our spirits when the world inevitably breaks us down. They relentlessly question our societal assumptions. But most importantly, they cultivate what she calls social imagination. You know, while commercial media is constantly flooding us with dystopian, end-of-the-world scenarios, it is imagination that actually stocks our minds with alternative, constructive futures. Because the reality is, you cannot build a better society if you literally cannot imagine what it looks like first.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really deep philosophical challenge that Goldbard presents to us. Every day, we are constantly pressured into adapting to absurdity. That's where we just sort of normalize preposterous or broken systems simply because it's easier to go along to get along. But the blueprint requires the exact opposite. It requires radical amazement. This is a state of refusing to adjust to mental cliches. It's staying totally vigilant, asking relentless questions like a 4-year-old does, and just refusing to accept that things have to be the way they currently are.
And finally, phase 5, the architecture of tomorrow.
So, by combining the resilience of massive failure, the mortar of radical empathy, and the walls of social imagination, what exactly are we building here? Well, the power of this combination in the real world is brilliantly illustrated by public artist Candy Chang. Dealing with the profound impact of a personal loss, she created a very simple, interactive wall in New Orleans. She stenciled the words, "Before I die, I want to," and just left chalk out for anyone to fill in the blank. It was a staggering success that spawned thousands of similar walls globally. It functions as a memento mori, a stark reminder of the inevitability of death, but also a memento vivere, a beautiful reminder to truly live. It shows us how a single imaginative sentence, when it's rooted deeply in empathy, can console spirits and instantly connect an entire community.
We've looked at the raw data of failure today, from James Dyson to Michael Jordan. We've traced the profound empathy in the life of Dr. Kalam, and we've explored the sheer necessity of imagination as argued by Arlene Goldbard. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, highly provocative question that Goldbard asks in her essay. She asks, how seriously can you take yourself? Taking yourself 100% seriously means releasing your identification with a cynical, absurd world and taking full responsibility for your own potential. So what is your role in the blueprint of society? It's time to start building.